My boyfriend's mother called me a bitch in my own apartment, so I threw her out. They never asked to move in. His mother called and told me they were coming and to have the spare bedroom ready. Not a question, a command. Like I was staff at a hotel she'd booked without checking the reviews. I looked at my boyfriend and waited for him to say something. He stared at the floor. That should have told me everything I needed to know. They showed up with suitcases and opinions. Within a week, his mother told me my cooking was bland, my apartment was disorganized, and my attitude needed adjusting. She said it all with a smile like she was doing me a favor. His father sat in the recliner nodding along like a man who'd learned decades ago that agreeing was easier than breathing. I kept my mouth shut because I loved my boyfriend and his parents terrified him. He grew up under their control, and even at 28 he flinched when his mother raised her voice. The way his shoulders pulled in when she entered a room. The way his eyes went blank when she gave an order. He wasn't choosing them over me. He was surviving them the only way he'd ever learned. But I had limits. The thermostat became the war. It was 90 degrees outside every day and I kept the air at 70. When they complained, I raised it to 75. That wasn't enough. They wanted the heat on, not the air lowered, the actual heat. I'd wake at 3 in the morning drenched in sweat with the apartment feeling like a greenhouse. I told them to stop. They ignored me. Every single day I came home to a sauna. I taped the thermostat shut. 10 strips of duct tape and a note that said, "Do not touch while I am at work." I came home that evening and the heat hit me before I got through the door. Tape ripped off. Note gone. Thermostat set to 98 degrees. My apartment was hotter than the air outside. I stood in my own hallway dripping sweat in a home I paid for, and something inside me that had been bending for 2 months snapped clean. I walked into the guest room without knocking. I said, "I am done asking. You respect my boundaries or you leave today." His mother looked at me like I tracked mud on her carpet. She said I had no right to barge in without knocking and I needed to check my attitude. And then she said the words that ended everything. "I've dealt with much bigger bitches than you before." She talked for 30 minutes after that. I stood there and let the words wash past me like noise from a television in another room. When she finished, I said, "Get out." She blinked. Then she said she'd be speaking to her son about this when he got home. Like he was my handler. Like this was his apartment and I was just a woman who needed correcting. I told her there was nothing to discuss. If he disagreed with my decision, he could break the lease and move back in with her. Either way, she wouldn't be sleeping here tonight. Something shifted in her face when she realized I wasn't afraid. She was used to people folding. Her son folded every time. I didn't, and she had no script for that. They packed and left within the hour. My boyfriend came home to a quiet, cool apartment for the first time in 2 months. He asked where his parents were. I told him. He asked me to call his mother and apologize. I said no. He said I could have just let them have their way. I stared at him and realized he genuinely believed that was a reasonable thing to ask someone. That night I showed him what strangers said online when I told them what happened. Hundreds of people saying the same thing. His mother was abusive. He was enabling it. I was not the one who owed an apology. He read in silence for a long time and got emotional. Then he asked the question that broke my heart. "Are you showing this because you're leaving me?" I said no. I wasn't going to leave without giving him the chance to fix this, but there were conditions. Therapy. Boundaries. His parents never stay with us again. And he calls his mother and tells her the way she treated me was wrong. He was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded. He said he'd been miserable too. He said he knew they were awful to me and he hated himself for not stopping it. He said cutting them off might be the healthiest thing for him, and that scared him more than anything, but he was willing to try. He called her the next day and asked her to apologize. I could hear her voice through the phone, sharp and offended. He didn't back down. His hands were shaking and his voice cracked, but he stayed on the line and said what he needed to say. When he hung up, he looked exhausted and relieved, like someone who'd just set down something impossibly heavy. I don't know if she'll ever apologize. I don't really care anymore. What matters is, he chose. For the first time in his life, he looked at the woman who raised him to be afraid and said no. That's not a small thing. That's everything. We're going to be okay as long as he follows through. And the thermostat stays at 70.